I'm Dana Moriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Larry Kosilla, founder of AMMO NYC. Here's the wild idea. Become one of the most well-known and well-respected car detailers in the world. Larry now has a wildly successful line of car care products, a media empire, including millions of YouTube subscribers who hang on his car care tips and stunning before and after reveals, and he still personally details cars for a high-profile client list. I wanted to talk to Larry because he quit a high-powered career path in finance to wash cars. When we think about quit your day job stories, this one is pretty dramatic. And it worked out incredibly well for Larry. This is a massive success story, and I was very eager to unpack how it happened with Larry. Stay tuned to hear why Larry quit his day job at the Mercantile Exchange, the high level of experience design he incorporated into his first car wash location, and why he's turned down multiple investment offers. Enjoy the conversation. I understand that you ran a car detailing business out of your driveway when you were in high school. So this is a passion that runs deep and runs long. Tell us more about that passion and what got you started and interested in the very beginning of the story.
When I was a child, I had this tendency to play and sit on toy cars. With a lot of pictures of me as a kid where I would actually drive around or whatever it is, push around, and then get a little bucket and wash it. And my mother always said there's a little on the strange side that instead of getting muddy and doing all that kind of stuff, I was very into the structure of cleaning at a young age, and that was the running joke in the family. I think people equate me with vehicles because I do love the aspect of freedom with vehicles, but for the most part, it's really taking something that is chaotic and bringing order to it, and that's what cleaning was. And I happen to love cars and cleaning. I was always into cleaning. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you why.
Did you imagine that this passion would intersect with a career path, or you thought these were two totally separate things from the very beginning?
I think it was more of an escapism in the beginning and a realization. So when I was on the Mercantile Exchange, I thought I could buy more cars by being rich so that I could gain my freedom. You get more money, you get more cars, you get more freedom. And it was actually quite the opposite of that. Working in that environment definitely helped me figure out quickly. That's the part that I'm most proud of. I was able to figure out what made me tick faster than I think most, because I wanted to get away from not doing what was my purpose. I was like, this is amazing, this is so great. And then, a year or two into it, I realized, like, wait a second, I got to see all these other people who I felt were like heartbroken and were just doing it because they wanted to make a lot of money, and that money that they got would be able to get them the freedom that they were looking for and the things. And to some degree, that's true, but they were still tied to this thing that they kind of didn't like. I remember years later, I worked for a guy, and he had so many Ferraris. He would come home, he would just like sit on the floor with me while I was cleaning like his $2 million Ferrari, and we would have these heart-to-hearts. And I said, have you always dreamt of like being the head of Bank of America or whatever? And he's like, no, because I hate it. I hate my life. I make so much money that I pay for my happiness with these cars, and the happiness that I have is me driving from Greenwich to New York City and then back. Those are my happy times. And I remember I'm like, and it just waved over me. Oh my God, this guy has so much power and money. And I could see that his heart was broken. So I felt like, in retrospect, wow, I think I made the right move despite the social pressures. You're supposed to be a doctor, you're supposed to be a lawyer, you're supposed to be a finance guru or whatever. And I think leaving that was probably the biggest hurdle. It's the, oh my God, what are my friends gonna say? I'm gonna leave to go wash cars. So that I think was the biggest hurdle, but it paid off in the end.
So interesting. You first took this job in the Mercantile Exchange. So I heard you use the phrase, I wanted to buy my freedom.
Yep.
So it sounds like you thought of this, correct me if I'm wrong, like it's a stop on the road to get somewhere else. This is not, was it a career you thought about building in finance, or this was always intended to be a short chapter to achieve a financial goal to then do something else?
I think at the time, in my ignorance of being a youth, I thought that was a long-term job. Okay. I got handed the keys to the kingdom there because I went to good schools, I knew the right people, and I got interviewed and whatever. And so I thought, yeah, I can make a whole lot of money doing this. But it was kind of a soul-crushing at the end. I remember my childhood mentor, he said to me one day, I never forget it, because I wanted to go to Wharton Business School in the worst way, and I couldn't get in. And he was, went to Wharton. And he said, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but if you're the best at whatever it is that you're doing, the money will find you. And that was enough of a push for me to be like, if he says it, I can do it. So he was kind of like the one that took down that last little wall of guilt for leaving. And I was like, all right, I guess I can do this. And if I'm the best in the world at cleaning, in this case cars, then I'll be able to make the money that I need to, my saying is always freedom through financial independence.
Yeah.
And if I can achieve that through the thing that I have the most purpose in, then I think I can make it work, as opposed to just like shoving it down and being like, I hate this job, like that guy that I was telling you about before. Yeah.
So it sounds like when you first joined the Mercantile Exchange, you had this kind of clear-ish goals, maybe some societal pressure of, I'm going to make a lot of money because that's what I'm supposed to do, and it's going to lead to my happiness, so I'm going to have freedom. What is the point at which you realized that was not true? What was the moment that kind of broke the bubble of, oh, this is not what I thought?
I'm not sure if there was a specific moment. I think there was lots of moments combined. My job is to put in or reconcile the trades that my trader, my broker, the head guy that made zillions of dollars. And I remember looking at, there's everybody down the line, all the me's of all the brokers down the line. And I just remember the people that were there doing it were super into what they were doing. And I was the only one that had a book on my table. And so in between the trades, when the market was a little slow or there was big news and the traders weren't trading, I'd be the only one reading an entrepreneurial book and thinking about what I could be doing afterwards and cleaning. I'd be doing everything but that job. And I realized that's not a good way to do something if you're just half-hearted into it.
When you talked about your decision to join the Mercantile Exchange, you didn't mention because I liked it, because I thought this would be interesting. It was because it would make a lot of money. And then it sounds like the realization was, oh, it matters if I like it or not, and I don't.
How long can you bite your tongue? How long can you bite your lip? How long can you grind it out? I don't know. That can't be healthy.
So you decide, this is not for me. I have to like what I'm doing. I don't like this. You mentioned that it wasn't an easy decision. What was the path between, I don't think I like this, I don't want to do it, and the day you walked in and told your boss that you quit?
That wasn't a fun place. I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember the couch. I remember the smell of the couch. I remember the feel of the couch. It was awkward because they were like, are you kidding me right now? You have the keys to the kingdom. We let you into this world. It was kind of emotional. I was like, listen, you need better people than me. And the next day, or probably that evening, I found a job on Craigslist. They were a car museum.
Yes.
And my job was to drive the cars around and prepare them for movies and photo shoots and things like that and magazines. And so I got to do all this amazing stuff. I took a gargantuan pay cut, which was difficult to say the least. Long story short, I ended up meeting at a photo shoot. I met a man, and then we started this car wash together because I'd never seen someone so fixated on becoming the best in the world at washing cars. He's like, it's just, I have to help you kind of situation. And so that's what spurred on the rest of my career.
What I hear about that is that classic combination of luck meets skill, right? It was luck that he happened to be there that day, but it was the magnetism of your skill and your passion that put that luck to work and made that relationship happen. When you get this idea from your business partner, hey, let's start a car wash together, are you thinking you're crazy, or are you thinking let's do this?
No, he technically wasn't a partner. He didn't invest. He was just like, what can I do to help you as much as possible, because you just want this in the worst way. Let's do this. So he helped in many, many ways and was at one point part of the business working together. But for me, I am very cautious about having partners because my personality just doesn't work with that.
Is one of the things you knew then, to go back to that moment where you said, I'm going to quit this museum and start a car wash, did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I know that I wanted freedom.
Okay. What did freedom mean to you?
Freedom, of course, is to make your own decisions. And so I thought, hey, this fallacy of do what you're passionate about, I really don't like that word. It just drives me crazy. But
and why don't you like it? What is the hesitation?
Because I think it's very like trivialized. I'm passionate about baseball, but I have no idea how to make any money doing it. So I think the purpose, if there's a purpose behind it, then you'll figure it out.
What made you confident that a car wash was both a good business and aligned with your purpose? How did you decide to take that leap?
So the first thing I did tactically, because I wanted to actually get my feet on the ground, is I was still working in the city, delivering cars or whatever. And then on my days off on the weekend, I would drive out to what I knew, which was Westchester County. And then I mapped out all the places that had car washes that I thought were really cool or different or unique or bad or great. I just mapped them all out of what would be considered my hometown area of 20 miles and who would be my competitors, for lack of a better word. And I would sit out in the car like a weirdo, and I just watch, and I'd count how many cars would go in and do all this research. And I went in one day, and I pretended to be a customer, and I got my car washed. And I went through the process and thinking, wow, this is pretty cool, but I would do it better this way, that way, and how this ideas. And then so I don't know what it was, but I went into the thing, and I said, hey, have you ever thought about selling? And he's actually, yes. It was just like some weird universe thing or whatever. And so within a couple of months, I made a deal and I structured it in such a way that I could make money, that I would rent the place and then pay him back. And then within 2-3 years, I'd own the place.
I imagine that to start that research, you must have first had a hypothesis like, I think this could be a thing. Let me figure it out. So what was that? You're working at this museum. You just had this thought, hey, I think I want to leave and start a car wash. Let me figure it out. Help me understand that.
I think I'm pretty good at finding a hole in the market kind of thing. And at that time, there wasn't anybody specializing in the very specific, the methodical, the thoughtful, the beautiful system on how to maintain these cars. And when I would talk about it with people, 90% of the people, they just would not hear the dog whistle. But the 10% or the 1% that would hear it would be totally in line. And they would be willing to spend and do anything to achieve that for the thing that gave them their purpose, which of course is their car or their motorcycle or their boat or whatever it is that personifies them. And I thought, oh wow, that would be super cool to speak specifically to that niche industry. So that's where I thought it would be cool to take over that car wash. And then the first thing I did was I raised prices 20%. And he had 420 something customers at the time. And so we cut those almost in half. But I raised it and then I made this wash process like you were going to like a Broadway show. It was like the spectacle and the beauty and the smell. When they got into the car, I had a custom floor mat. And then they would walk over to it. I put the keys in a velvet bag, and just so they could open the velvet bag and take their keys out. Just the pageantry of the whole thing, and it just went crazy. People loved it, and they were willing to spend, back in the day, $35 for a car wash, which is a big deal because we were $20, and I raised it to $35. People lost their minds nowadays. I mean, that's silly, but it's hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to be charged now. But that was the first time I said, oh, there could be a market, for this type of niche thing.
And what were your goals when you bought that business and you kind of envisioned what this could be? What did you envision and what did you think it would mean for you personally that you get?
I thought I could make the world's greatest car wash. I wanted to take something that I thought was a commodity, something that I thought was just like, yeah, whatever. I wanted to be the one that made it okay for people to be crazy about their cars. For me, my mission with the company is to have freedom through financial independence. I like to understand my expenses and how much comes in and how much goes out. What do I need to survive and then live the life that I want? The money that comes out of the money that you have in the bank, if that's enough where you can live off of that, to me, you've won. And you can do that faster as an entrepreneur, in my opinion, than as someone working in corporate.
So let's go back to that moment when you felt like you were starting to win for the first time at that car wash. I imagine that there was a tipping point emotionally where you started to say, this is working. I know what I'm doing here. When did that start to happen?
I think once I started understanding, this is going to sound really corny, when I understood QuickBooks. When you start to understand profit and loss and balance sheets and cash flows and like the most basic of basic things, you start to see what is the input. What's the push that makes this number go up? And what's the pull that makes this number go down? And then you equate that to the actions that you do during the day.
Yeah, what I hear in that is control. As an entrepreneur, you have much more control over your destiny, and you understanding QuickBooks allows you to see the levers of control and what you can pull to grow.
Really
that
cool.
That makes a lot of sense. So you understand QuickBooks, you understand the levers, you're growing your first business, the car wash, and you decide to sell it after a few years of success and get into different lines of business. I know fast forwarding, how did you make that decision to sell it? It feels like a very big pivot point to the next phase of your career.
Yeah, to be as transparent as possible. It was 2008 and the market crashed. And I made some really dumb decisions. What happened is I took all the extra money I did, dumped it in, and then leveraged a whole bunch in the S&P 500. And when the market crashed, I lost everything, just like everybody else.
Yep.
I didn't have the cushion that I thought I was going to have. And so at that point, nobody was coming in and getting car washes. The market crashed. So I was in a bit of a pickle. So I didn't sell at the high. I leveraged myself to be able to get out of that lease and sell it back to the previous owner. That's the truth. And then I had a van, and that van, when I was running the numbers in QuickBooks on that, was making more profit per hour than the full building.
Wow. The mobile detailing business.
The mobile detailing, I got back on the van and my profitability went way up because I had no overhead. I already paid for that van. And so I went and lived off this van forever and just hustled. And I'm in the Northeast, so it's really cold. So like nobody washes their car when it's 20 degrees, but I had to find people who did. And it was just miserable, but I still had that purpose to be able to drive through that. My wife, she has a PhD in chemistry. And so I was really starting to get excited about the chemistry and all this stuff. My dad was a chemist. So like I really was fascinated, much the same as the P&L and the balance sheet and all that, like what inputs made this go up, when inputs made that go down. Same thing with the chemistry. If I added more lubrication in this, or if I put salts in that, or I took the salts out, how would that change the end result? And I did a ton of research, and I started consulting for some companies about like how to make things better, because at that point I was a really good kind of well-known detailer, and like, I need this type of product to do this thing on $1 million car, but they didn't have it. How could we make it? And so I worked with them, and eventually I was like, this is so interesting. Like, the people who make the product actually don't know how to do the job. The people who do the job don't know how to make the product. So I became the liaison between these big manufacturing companies up on the ground, and then I just stuck myself with the chemists. And I was able to bounce it off my wife as well. And so I stuck with the chemists, and I just sat with them and learned and learned and learned. And when they retire, I was like, I know exactly how to make this. So I stepped in and started making products for these other companies. But the interesting thing about that was they wanted to make it for massive car washes, massive, like thousands of gallons. And so that's what I was doing. But I said to them, I think there's people out there that are willing to spend a whole lot more to have the Whole Foods of car care products. And he's like, that's a horrible idea, because that doesn't make any sense. Who's going to pay double to have like the organic version, for lack of a better word, of this soap? So I said, hey, I think people want to really get into the beauty and the dance and the therapeutic aspects of cleaning their car. I said, I'm not going to consult anymore. I want to go off and do this on my own. They said, you're crazy. You're never going to beat these big companies. I was like, this is amazing. We can go do all this stuff. And the guy was like, there's no way. That doesn't make sense. You know why?
Take it. Yeah.
I take it. But you know what happened during that time?
What?
YouTube.
This is the luck of timing.
Right.
So now that your business has grown so much, it seems from the outside that you have three businesses under one umbrella, right? You have your car detailing, you have your products, you have your media business, which is enormous as well. So I'm curious how your goals changed along this journey. Because when you started the car wash, you said, hey, my goals are I want to have the best car wash in the world. And I want to have control and be in control of my destiny. Now you're setting up these three businesses saying, we're going to go global, we're going to sell products. How did your goals change at that point? What were you now envisioning that you would be?
Well, because I started understanding the profit and loss, and the fact that I was killing myself cleaning these cars, just physically very difficult and breaking fingers and the whole thing, I realized this YouTube thing is like fire. It's like napalm. I was really burning the candle at both ends, because I can only make as much as I put in. And so this fallacy of trading dollars for time, I became very aware of that, and I said, oh, I get it. So if I can shoot a video and reach millions of people, my goal changed from wanting to be the best detailer to the people around me, which I was still doing, but I wanted to be able to educate people around the world on what I was doing, to inspire them to do it themselves. I'm a one-man show. I'm making this stuff by hand. It costs more, but you're going to get my blood, sweat, and tears in this bottle, and I will show you every single thing. And if there's a problem, you can call. To this day, for 17 years, it's the same thing. You email me, you're going to get me.
So you mentioned that your goal shifted to scalability, reach, impact, but at the same time, you're not hiring wildly. You're still that one-man show. Those two things from the outside seem like they could potentially be in conflict. How do they make sense to you?
To this day, you are looking at the only employee of AMMO.
Wow.
Which is
Talk about
insanity.
keeping your costs low.
So I'm pretty
Impressive.
crazy. I have a pretty good work ethic in terms of when I get up and when I go to sleep and what I'm doing and my time and all these kinds of things. My route is definitely a little further to the right than I think is probably healthy or advisable. I have gotten a lot of healthy offers to grow the company in a particular way, and that would probably set me up pretty good. And I thought that it would violate the rule that I created for myself, which was to be no partners, to have this freedom through financial independence by closely watching my personal velocity of what money comes in, what money goes out, and how I spend. And I think by letting that influx of money, which is also referred to as debt, into my life, I think my personality of the fastidiousness of keeping things simple in order would have been thrown out of whack. I haven't taken any money, and a lot of it has been offered to grow the company. And I've decided to stay direct to consumer. I was really scared in the beginning, and now I feel like I'm getting better at being like, thank you for the offer, blah, blah, blah. Here's how it's going to work. I have a one-pager that says, this is exactly how I operate, how I can feel like I want to do what I need to do. And if that works, let's do it. If it doesn't, just say it up front.
So you would be willing to get into an arrangement if somebody could meet all of these criteria that you
Absolutely.
very carefully honed for yourself.
But it's not their playbook, and I get
yours.
that. It's my playbook, so I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to spreading and having this more available for people. I just know who I am, and I know the paths that I've gone down and go, whoa, I don't want to go down that path again. I will say that we can make a whole lot more money. I don't know if I can do that in the way that they want to do it. Well, I'll do it the way that I want to do it.
I think this comes back to the theme of you know yourself.
Right.
And I'm a big believer there's no good or bad decisions. There's just right fit, as you mentioned yourself.
Right fit,
and
yes.
you know what's the right fit for you because you know yourself so well and you are confident about sticking to that. So
the big thing for me is generate income, have no debt, have a purpose, and really kind of stick to that purpose.
That was Larry Kosilla talking about his journey building AMMO NYC. Here are my 3 favorite lessons from that episode. Number 1, be okay with doing something that's not for everyone. Larry's services aren't for everyone. When he opened his first car wash, he increased prices and increased the level of service, knowing it would appeal to a smaller clientele, but a clientele that would be delighted, loyal, and willing to pay for his unique services. 2, scale yourself so that you're not trading time for money. Larry's chosen to remain the only full-time employee of AMMO. That means that all of the work that gets done on the cars is done by him. And as he was growing, he was finding that he was really burning the candle on both ends, and it was incredibly hard to sustain. It was by getting into media and by getting into product sales that he was really able to scale beyond what he could do with his own 2 hands. 3, know yourself and the principles that you'll use when making decisions. Larry's done a lot of introspection to understand his personal principles. In particular, he feels strongly about not taking on debt. He gets many offers for investment in his company, and he now has the confidence to clearly lay out what would need to be true for him to be interested in these offers. He created his own playbook, and he sticks to that rather than being willing to play by somebody else's rules. This is Dana Moriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.